as recently as the 1990s, we had a surplus. We had a balanced budget. Now these tax cuts have meant that and the war has meant that we don't have a balanced budget anymore, and the nobody talks about raising taxes in this country any longer, which I just find mind-boggling, because it's the Republican Party that invented taxes in national taxes in the 1860s. But in the past, until the 1990s, because remember, even George H.W. Bush did this, if the country needed money, you raised taxes to get it. It was like a math problem, right? We need more money to fight this war. We'll raise money. We'll raise war taxes. Or we need more money to do this. We'll raise taxes on the very wealthy, or whatever. Our taxes on the top income bracket under Republican President Dwight Eisenhower were 92%. You know, that doesn't mean everything was taxed at 92%, but there's kind of like, think of them as layers. The top layer was taxed at 92%. Now, of course, the money at the very top is the tax brackets have been significantly lowered, but nobody really is talking about that, which seems to me, man, if I had one thing I could do in this country, I would give us back our progressive taxation, because then you wouldn't have people who had enough money to buy a presidential election. Okay, I'll stop. But the problem here is that in 2023, Congress suspended the debt ceiling until January 1st, 2025. Last Friday, Secretary of the Treasury Janet Yellen, who, by the way, has been spectacular, said we're going to hit the debt ceiling between January 14th and January 25th, just in time for the new Republican trifecta in the Congress and in the White House. And here's the problem. Trump wants to get rid of the debt ceiling altogether, because he wants to extend his tax cuts. And the Congressional Budget Office, which is nonpartisan, has said that extending those tax cuts are going to cost $4.6 trillion over the next 10 years. In addition, the person he wants to become in charge of the deportations that he has talked about, Tom Homan, has said that just starting that process is going to be $85 billion. All right, so 4.6 trillion, 85 billion, you got a problem right there, right? Because Congress has to come up with that money. Where is it going to come up with that money? I'm uncomfortable with operating in the red personally, and please don't. It's New Year's Eve. Please don't write to me about how I'm wrong. Let me be wrong tonight if you disagree. But the Republicans have had their heads exploding over this, and they've been blaming the Democrats. And the Democrats keep saying, we got to raise taxes. We got to do something here, because right now we have cut the government so thinly that there's really no place else that we can cut. The Republicans keep talking about, waste and all that, but what they're really talking about is that they can throw a lot of people off of, for example, Medicaid, by instituting rules that are largely impossible to fill. So if some of the rules that they're talking about for Medicaid basically will just throw people who need Medicaid off Medicaid, and that's where they'll find the savings. And Democrats are looking at that and saying that we don't think is good for society, because then people get sick, and a sicker population is a less productive population. Anyway, the Republicans have been saying that they desperately want to stop operating in the red, and so they've been dead set against increasing the debt ceiling if there was a Democrat in office. They did it 3 times for Trump in the past, but they refused to do it under Biden, who had to have it done once, and that was, I'm not going to go into that right now. That's where we get this 2023 law. But they have said to Trump that they were willing to raise the debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion. They're willing to do that, but they want $2.5 trillion in cuts over the next 10 years. It's not mathematically possible to cut $2.5 trillion out of the non-mandatory spending that people like Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have said that they're going to cut it out of. There's it's just not that big a budget. And it actually starts with veterans benefits. So it's a math problem. It can't be done. And this split Republican Party is trying to go into this with Trump saying, cut the debt ceiling, get rid of it altogether. I want to be able to spend as much money as I want. And MAGA Republicans who still need MAGA voters saying, screw you, that's not going to happen. We're willing to give you some, but now you got to cut elsewhere. But if they cut elsewhere, they're cutting into programs that people want. It is a dumpster fire. And